Welcome to the Pink Door Podcast. It is great to have you with us. Today, our mission is very focused. We are doing a deep dive into the November 2025 real estate data for a really fascinating coastal town in Massachusetts.
Yep, we're covering it all. Single-family homes, condos, townhouses.
And the goal is to really distill what the key numbers mean, to get at the underlying trends so you know exactly where this market stood as we headed into the end of the year.
And, we have to start with the name of the town itself, because it's a classic. We're talking about Scituate.
Scituate. It's one of those names that always trips people up. Scituate.
Mm-hmm. I saw one source that actually rated its pronunciation difficulty a 3 out of 5. So moderately tricky.
I think that's fair. And that's the market we're diving into today.
It is, and it's a good metaphor for the market, actually. A little tricky, a bit complex, and has some contradictions baked right in.
So let's set the stage. We're looking at November. Traditionally, that's a slowdown, right? Holidays, less activity. So what was the big picture, the overall market condition in Scituate?
Well, the headline is that it is still, without a doubt, a seller's market.
Okay, so still really competitive.
Intensely competitive. But it's not the scorching hot market we saw over the summer. November's data showed some really intriguing shifts, suggesting that the momentum is changing.
All right, let's get into it. Let's start with supply. How tight was the inventory in November?
It was extremely tight, historically speaking. The months of inventory, or MOI, was just 1.56 months.
And for anyone listening, just give us some context on that number. What does 1.56 months actually mean?
Sure. A balanced market is usually 4 to 6 months of inventory. So 1.5 months means that if nothing else came on the market, every single home in Scituate would be sold in about 6 weeks.
Wow, that is incredibly restrictive for buyers.
It is. It makes finding choices really exhausting.
But here's the metric from the report that really jumped out at me. That 1.56 months figure, it's actually a huge month-over-month change. Inventory is up.
It's up by a staggering 40%.
40% in 1 month.
Exactly. That's the most dynamic number in this whole deep dive. While the town is still starved for supply, that kind of sharp, sudden jump points to a real shift in behavior.
So it's not a slow trickle of new houses?
No, it was an immediate boost. It could be sellers trying to get in before the holidays, or maybe just reacting to some kind of economic signal.
So for you, as a buyer, what does that feel like on the ground?
It means instead of having maybe 2 homes to look at, you suddenly have 5 or 6. It doesn't solve the problem, but it lowers the intense emotional pressure. You go from panic to maybe just cautious urgency.
Okay, so more inventory. Does that mean homes were sitting on the market longer? What was the speed of sale?
They're still moving incredibly fast. But, and this is a big but, they're moving slower than they did in October. The median days in RPR was 9 days.
And you just used an acronym, RPR. Can you just quickly clarify that for us?
Of course. RPR is Realtor Property Resource. So when we say median days in RPR, we're talking about the time from when a house is listed in the MLS until it goes under contract.
Got it. So 9 days. Still lightning fast.
It is. But you have to look at the trend. And that 9-day median is a 52.63% increase from October.
52%. That's a fundamental shift in momentum.
It is. In October, houses were gone in 4 or 5 days. You had to drop everything.
Right. Now in November, you might actually have a weekend to think it over.
Exactly. The extreme urgency is fading into just, high urgency. The market is softening a bit for the buyer, but without destroying the seller's advantage.
And we know sellers still have the advantage because of the final price they're getting.
That's right. You look at the sold to list price percentage. In November, sellers in Scituate got 97.8% of their asking price.
So they're still getting almost exactly what they asked for?
Almost exactly. It's down just a tiny bit, 0.72% from the month before, but it confirms buyers are still willing to pay the going rate.
Okay, let's pivot from speed to the actual dollars. This is where the data tells 2 really different stories, and I want to unpack this. Let's start with the sticker price. The median sold price in November was $852,500.
And that number, on its own, screams volatility. It's down 4.75% just from October.
Which is a dip, but not huge.
Right. But look back 3 months to the peak of the summer and fall. The median sold price is down a massive 22.5% from then.
22%. Now, buyers hearing that might think the bottom is falling out of the market.
They might, and I see the immediate drop. But you just said the market is robust and competitive. I have to push back a little here. A 22.5% drop in 90 days seems like more than just a different mix of homes selling.
Okay.
With interest rates where they are, isn't it also just as likely that buyers simply can't or won't pay those inflated August prices anymore?
That is a fair and a really critical question. Yes, there's absolutely some rate fatigue affecting what buyers can afford. That's real.
So that pushes the overall price down.
It does. But when we look at the whole data set, the median sold price tells us about the 18 specific houses that closed. It doesn't tell us about the value of all the other houses in town.
Okay, so you're separating the transactions from the overall value.
Exactly. The short-term pain is real, but that $852,500 median is still up 6.56% over the last 2 years. The equity foundation for homeowners is solid. That's a key distinction. So let's bring in that second number. If the sold price was $852,000, what does the market really think a Scituate home is worth? This is the median estimated property value, or MEPV.
The MEPV, yeah. You could call this the true value number. It's what the models say, looking at everything, not just the few houses that sold. And in November, the MEPV was $1,053,000.
Wow, that's a $200,000 difference between what sold and what the models say the market is worth.
And that estimated value is incredibly resilient. It's up 11% over the last 12 months.
And even more over 3 years.
It's up 17.43% over the last 36 months. So that tells you the fundamental appreciation, the core value, it hasn't solved at all. The $852,500 is just the median of the specific homes that happened to trade hands in November.
Which were probably skewed toward the mid to lower end of the market. That makes sense. So let's look at what was for sale versus what actually sold. There were 29 active listings in November.
And 18 sales.
Which brings us to another dramatic number. The median list price.
Yes, the asking price. This is another head-scratcher. The median list price in November was $997,000.
So basically $1 million.
Right. But here's the trajectory. That number's down 15.15% month over month.
15% is a big drop.
It gets bigger. It's down an enormous 37.65% over the last 12 months.
Whoa. A 37% drop in the median asking price in 1 year. That's staggering. What does that do to a homeowner's perception of the market?
Well, the consequence isn't that every home lost 37% of its value. The consequence is that the sellers at the very high end got cautious. They got risk-averse.
So they just pulled back.
It seems so. That kind of list price drop strongly suggests that the people who own the $2 or $3 million homes just decided to sit November out. When they disappear, the median price collapses.
So the most confident sellers sold early or are just waiting for spring, leaving the mid-range homes to define the November market.
Precisely. The active listings spanned a huge range, from $545,000 all the way up to over $2 million. It only takes a few of those high-end listings to step aside to create this kind of statistical noise.
Okay, so where did the sales actually happen? What price point had the most activity?
The action was really in the middle and upper middle of the market. The highest number of sales, 5 properties, was in the $1 million to $1.5 million range.
So buyers ready to spend 7 figures are still out there, and they're active.
Absolutely. And then right behind that, there were 5 sales combined in the $700,000 to $900,000 range.
And across all those sales, they were still getting close to asking price.
Yep. The average list-to-sold percentage was still a very high 98%. And we even saw one sale close in the $2.5 to $3 million bracket. So the luxury buyer is still there for the right property.
Okay, let's quickly touch on 2 other areas, rentals and distressed properties. What's happening on the rental side?
The rental market there is still very, very tight. The median listing price for rental over the last 3 months was $3,775 a month.
That's a serious rent payment. And what does a number like that signal for the sales market?
It just creates immense pressure. I mean, if that's your alternative, the math starts to push you toward buying, even with higher interest rates. High rents fuel the demand that keeps the sales market competitive.
Makes sense. And how about distressed properties? Are we seeing a rise in foreclosures?
Surprisingly, no. The data shows only one distressed property in the entire town, an address on Booth Hill Road.
And it was categorized as a newly filed complaint. What does that mean exactly?
That's the very first step. It means the lender has started the legal process, but it is not a foreclosure sale. The homeowner has months, maybe longer, to work something out.
So the fact that there's only one property, even at that initial stage, is a really good sign.
It's a very powerful sign of overall market health and homeowner equity.
Okay, so that brings us to the final synthesis. If you're trying to understand the Scituate market, what's the one key takeaway from all this November data?
I think it's the market's paradoxical nature. It is, structurally, a seller's market. Inventory is low, homes sell fast, and the long-term value is still appreciating strongly.
Right.
But those sudden, sharp swings in inventory, in days on market and the transactional price, show that the market is adjusting really quickly to external pressures. It's still competitive, but it's becoming more balanced. It's giving the buyer just a little bit of breathing room.
So the market is correcting its speed, not necessarily its underlying value.
Precisely. That's a perfect way to put it.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to think about. We've just seen a 40% jump in inventory and a 52% increase in days on market in a single month. So the question is, are we seeing the final exhale of that hyper-competitive COVID-era market tightness? Or is this just a really dramatic winter lull that's going to vanish the second the spring listings hit the market? If you have any questions about today's episode, or if you are thinking about buying or selling a house anywhere on Boston's South Shore from Southie to Sagamore, give Jim Aldred a call. He would love to help you. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the Pink Door Podcast.